We'll be around another 10 years for a big 100th celebration. One of the things we wanted to do tonight was to try and bring together some of the folks who have a lot of knowledge of Port Republic, and in some cases they go back all 90 years to 1905 when Port Republic separated from Galloway. At this point, what I'd like to do is ask everybody, I'll introduce myself and tell you how many years I've been here, and then ask everyone just to tell us their name and how many years they've lived in this wonderful little community. I'm Jim Schroeder. I've been here 25 years. I got to Port the old-fashioned way. I married someone from Port. And Beverly Bowen Schroeder, her family's been here, well, let's see, some of her ancestors were at Chestnut Neck when they burned the houses down, so they've been here a good long time. But in any event, as we'll start down the end, Virgil, you want to just...
I've been here 75 years.
Okay, you got to try and use the mics if you can.
Virgil Pierce has been here 75 years.
Albert Wilson, 75 and a half. Fillmore Cavalier, 80 years.
Gary Giverson, 60 years.
John Brown.
Okay. Born and raised here in this little town, 9/27/04. In other words, 27th of September 1904. By this coming September will be 91. That's it.
I was here in Port Republic. I was born on Clark's Landing Route, April 21st, 1905. So it makes it around 90 years. Can you hear me all right? I'm not used to talking in these. They work all right.
They're all live, so you don't have to push any buttons or anything. Just talk in.
We're grateful tonight that we're here to celebrate this occasion. And we need to give a lot of thanks to Jim, my neighbor, because he's worked hard on this situation. And so tonight, Jim, we want to give you thanks for the things you've done and what you're going to do. Jim makes a good representative on the City Council in Port Republic. He's interested in people. He wants to see that they have them guided in the right direction. So we're grateful tonight for Jim and all the rest of the mayor. Of course, he's here somewhere. The mayor and all the rest of the council. They're doing a good job. They're, of course, restricted under some of the things that come down from the state. They tell us what we have to do, and we have no alternatives. We go along with it. We thank you tonight, Jim, and all.
Well, thank you, Russ, and we appreciate your very kind words. Claire?
Claire Gerber, and Ned and I retired here like Jim 25 years ago. We didn't retire, but moved here 25 years ago, and we're very glad we did.
I'm Ruth Faber of Florida, and I'm born and raised here and very proud of it. 67 years.
Gladys Champion. I was born 78 years ago on this street that used to be called Tub Street. Now they changed it to Third Avenue.
Mabel Wilson Winkler, and I lived here until I was 22, and then but I didn't move. Renee Carver, and my heart is still here.
Good evening. I'm 83 3/4, I guess you'd say. In this town.
Oh, he looks like Sally. Our Sally looks like him.
I'm Linda Huntley. I came here to teach school. A lot of you people remember the bad times.
Let's give them all a round of applause. VE Day, May 8th, 1945. And here we are 50 years later, and I'm wondering if any of you can tell us where you were on that historic occasion 50 years ago this week. And who would like to start? Elton, can you remember where you were? VE Day, May 1945.
I was in
Germany.
Germany? Do you remember where you were when you heard the word? When you heard that the war was over in Europe?
It was on the Austrian and German border. And I had quite a few points, and I was one of the first ones in the battalion to get home, and it was all happy.
Now, I know Gladys told me where she was. Maybe you'll tell everybody else, Gladys.
So when the word came that the war was over, we were really thankful because God had been good to our boys over there and he hadn't taken any of them. And I was right over home there and so thankful. We've been out and flew the wars and all that business to celebrate the end of the war.
I was second place in Norfolk at that time.
I was right here in Port. At the house we lived in, we called it Uncle Ben's house. Everybody knows Uncle Ben.
We were working at the Manahawkin. About noon time. And the boss, he come down and he said, "Put your tools away." He said, "They just signed the treaty." Out there, there was a lot of noise. So he said, "Go on home, everybody go home." So we got the order from Trenton to send you home. So I was working at the farm.
I was working at the bomb plant. Needless to say,
Where was the bomb plant? John, do you remember where you were when you heard the word that the war was over in Europe?
I had a 54-inch saw hanging there in the mill. When I heard this news that the war was over, well, you could have heard that saw get stirred to Smithville because I pounded the daylights out of it.
One other thing. Anybody else?
I remember, Jim, my father running in, grabbing a shotgun and putting 5 into her and putting 5 out of her real quick. And the jubilation was just unbelievable. And that afternoon...
One other thing. Gladys, I know you had to do with your going back home, living at home, and waiting for some mail. Will you share that?
We did for a letter each day to see if our loved ones were all right over in Europe or Japan, wherever they were. And Mrs. Huntley was postmistress then in Francis. And we get down, and if we didn't get a letter, we were very disappointed. But if the mail came in later, that dear lady would bring it to us 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'll never forget it.
One of the other things, before we leave World War along those lines. War ended?
No.
Now, anything else you remember about Fort during World War II?
what did you drive?
What?
What did you drive?
What kind of automobile were you driving back then?
I remember something really neat in town, right there.
She and I would go over Sunday afternoon for 3 hours.
And one day, we would be relieved by the Walker twins. And so one day those kids got out there and they thought they were going to make the fire a little bit hotter in the room. And instead of, I don't know what they got, but they threw gasoline in there. And I took the kids to the hospital for very bad burns. And we used to report the planes, and I worked for Anthony Coyer, who was the chief observer down in Pleasantville. And he used to have it 24 hours a day. He had to have somebody covered. And so if somebody called in and said they couldn't make it, he'd say, Miss Pierce, get your books. Call the cop, take you out to the observation post. And I have my kids for over 500 hours because I've been many days out at that observation post in Pleasantville.
Anybody else?
How the different families enforce and take the boys in for Sunday dinner.
There was quite a few ladies that worked up at the home. Camp Bidlow, she worked there. Betty worked there.
Speak into the mic.
Pardon?
Speak into the mic.
Oh, all worked over at the bomb plant in Mays Landing. There was quite a few of us. And we took turns driving back and forth.
I remember Jen Denny.
Did anybody say that there was 72 boys from Fort Republic in the World War II? Only one boy, he was married to a Dakota. Maybe Philly can think of his name. And he was killed after the war in an accident. So there were no other casualties.
They had a CC camp. Well, that was in across the way over there. And the fellows used to march up through town every once in a while. And my wife, our baby was... So, anyway, this gang of soldiers, they marched by, and then my little son was standing out there. She was at there. He said, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. That wasn't me. I tried to get a job over there building the camp at the time, and it wouldn't hire me. And Jojo Kramer, we used to call him. He sat down and was cutting brush, and he cut his foot pretty bad. And he couldn't work till I got a job, and I worked there till it was finished then. But then I had 2 hound dogs, real good hound dogs. And the CC camp moved out of town. And when they moved out, my dogs went. So somebody told me that they were over in Tuckahoe. So I went over there. And I called the one dog, and around the corner he'd come. Well, I went to the lieutenant first, asked him, I said, does any of the fellows have any dogs around here? He said, no, I don't have any dogs around here. Well, I whistled, but he was the one to come around first. And I said, well, there's one right there. Now, where's the other one? I said, you better hunt them up pretty soon, there's going to be some trouble. And they soon found the other one. That was the end of the story.
Good story. Anyone else? World War II.
World War II?
Anything you remember about Fort, World War II, or anything you want to relate?
Really? Okay. I got a letter from Ann Pierce. She told me all about the church, and I'll never forget that. Another lady, Mary Heinz, and Gus Hickman, they each sent me $1, and I'm telling you, that was big, real big. There's one thing I want to remember about going to school here. There was the teacher in this room. You know how far you could go. When her neck started to get red, you better watch out. And that was Miss Mitchell.
Before we leave the war period, John leaned over and said to me, World War II, he said, I remember World War I. So I'm going to give John a chance to tell us a little bit about what he remembers about World War I.
Don't need that now.
Huh?
No, I don't want to.
You don't want to say it now? What do you remember about it?
I remember that my brother was over in France before the war. That was in November 1918. was my stepmother's birthday, and he had written a letter over in France. He said, Mom, I think you'll get this right close to your birthday. And it came right that very day. We went over to the church. We didn't pull a rope. We went right up and took a hold of the bell, and we rocked that thing till we could have fallen apart. We were all so happy. I'm wondering if I would ask you, do you know how come Port Republic became an incorporated city? I'll just say it this way. Ralph Ashley, when Port was still in Galloway, this was just a little prior to 1905, Ralph Ashley ran for township assessor in Galloway. That would include all of Port, all of Galloway. And he lost the election to a man named Anthony Kinsley, a very nice man, a Democrat, Ralph Republican. Well, it kind of upset things, and Port Republic decided they would go their own way and separate from Galloway Township. And the movement took a hold, and that's what happened, and that's really why you're here tonight.
And who won the first mayoral election?
Well, my dad was a Democrat, and he ran against Ralph Ashley and beat Ralph and became the first mayor of Port.
And whose grandfather was the first president of city council?
My grandfather.
Okay, Fillmore. Let's move. Russ, did you want to say something?
You still on World War I?
Yes, if you had something to tell us.
Yeah, I think there is. We had a very dear friend we lost in World War I. Alvin Webb. He was a good Christian man. He was secretary of the Sunday school for years in Port Republic. And he contacted pneumonia over in France and never recovered. So that's what I wanted to say. But Alvin was a very good Christian man. Very active in our church at that time.
The gentleman that Mr. Cox was talking about was my uncle.
All right. I imagine that the effect of both those wars is hard for children of this generation to imagine, and perhaps equally hard is the depression. One child I talked to thought depression was a word. He didn't know. Certainly, Great Depression meant nothing, but I think it means and meant a great deal to all of us here. So let us hear anything that you all would like to tell us about your memories of the Depression, the Great Depression.
Snowstorm, and Mother wanted groceries, and there was no heater in the car. So anyway, I took one of those round kerosene heaters, put that in the, took the back seat out, put that in the back, and Marge and I went to Egg Harbor and bought groceries.
Did you say something about
Virgil, Elton, anything you remember from back then?
Yeah, in the 30s.
30s.
Yeah, I was a great digger.
Tell us about it.
Dan Fields was, well, we called him the janitor then. And he was 90 years old. And he couldn't handle it. So he had me dig graves for him over here. Up till 39 when I went to work with the state, with the bridge crew, with Russ and that outfit.
You remember what you got paid for digging a grave?
$10. And then days you dug them 6 foot deep. Today they dig them 50 inches and get 235.
Foreman wanted a full shovel and someone to handle.
That's right.
Anybody else?
Yes, I think Goody said something about what CCC. Did you know about that? I thought you mentioned something about the civilian group. How about the CCC camp in town? What do you remember about that?
That was across this creek here on the other side.
Yeah, well, wasn't that during the Depression?
Yeah.
Yes, tell about it.
I didn't know him then either.
Well, what was the town like during that? What can anyone tell us about Fort Republic during that time of when we were deprived of
David Blackman?
My dad and his 4 sisters went to school across what we call Gator Point. And there was a Judge Blackman figured in this. They said David S. Blackman was a hog. He built a schoolhouse on the bog. And that's where the beautiful home is over there on the creek on that side. But there is a little story that I think you might enjoy. Between here, Smithville, and here, there's a brick home standing catty corner to the road. Fred Risley was a school teacher, and he lived there with his family, but he taught school up in Galloway. But he would come up through Fort in the morning and go back through Fort when school was over. But he had a habit, and that habit was talking to himself as he pushed that bicycle on the road. And he was heard to say, and I'm going to quote, "Pretty soon I'll be up in Fort Republic, and Mr. Van Zandt will be out there, and he'll say, 'Good morning, Mr. Risley.'" He says, and I won't say a damn word.
That's a great story, Judge.
I know that's a quote because I never heard John Brown say a word.
Goody? Goody, do you want to say something?
I don't know whether you remember the old hall that used to be over here or not. And they used to have meetings at POS a day, and the ladies ate. They met over there all the time. But they upstairs, they used to have shows. Regular minstrel show would come in town, and they would black the face in these. And, oh, we had a lot of fun over there. We had dances over there. I threw a party for her over there one night when I hired the hall. I think I paid something like $4 for the use of the hall.
School days. Any memories? Ruth?
Well, I attended grammar school for a while, but most of my time I had private tutors because I wasn't able to get up the steps. But they were nice days. That's about all I can do.
Laddie?
I can tell a tale about a teacher that's sitting here, but she threatened my life. Can I tell it, Linda? Yes. One day we was there, Bill and I, and we were talking and being smart, I guess, and we were chewing gum, and she made me put the chewing gum on my nose and sit there the whole day with her. I still love you, Linda.
I had Aaron Baker, school teacher, and I was upstairs in the old building. And no, he was on the lower floor, wasn't he? Yeah. But when you got out of turn there, he just picked you up and threw you in the corner. He didn't fool. Sometimes he'd slap you, but he was a good teacher. Linda?
All of my pupils were perfect.
How many years did you work in this school system, Linda? How many years did you work in this school? 45? 25, okay. It felt like 45. Right? Did the kids get any better over the years, or did they get worse?
They were always good in those days. They always had the parents behind them.
Yeah.
And never had any trouble.
And?
I would remember. They always remember the bad things.
She taught my son, and he always said he learned more here than he did in any other school that he ever went to.
Where did he go to high school?
I was in Harvard.
Teddy was on the honor roll when he went to Pleasantville. That's because she taught him.
I have some Linda Huntley stories, a million of them.
There was one thing when I went to school we don't have today. When I went to school, they had prayer in the school, and they saluted the flag. So that's much needed today. So that's a short story, but it's a good one. Because I remember when the teacher read the Bible. When you're a kid, I remember my Sunday school teachers that were in our church, Mrs. Emma Johnson and Miss Sophie Adams, one large, one yellow, they were sisters. Very soft-spoken people. They were genuine people. They told the kids what they need to grow up with. They read the Word in the Bible. So, if we don't get anything else tonight, we need folks to get back to the basics of religion. The morality in our country is going way down. I think you all agree with that when you look at television. You wonder what's the people that are sponsoring and has charge of that, what they think of it. They were teaching our young people, and we wondered why the young people are where they are.
It's nice to look back, though, and remember what things used to be. Do you remember about the stores here in Port?
True, he grabbed the cowboy's tail, and he pulled the tail right off the cow.
But I didn't think I was going to include it tonight.
I have a question, Jim. I would like to know if anyone here...
A family moved in town, and my wife and I got the children, brought them to Sunday school. And the father said, I'm going to buy a cow. And he bought the cow, and I said to him, well, we've had cows at home, and I think maybe if you should get in a jam, I might be able to help you out. Phone rang, it's summertime. Johnny said, could you come down and help me? The calf came, and the cow has hooked the calf and thrown it around, and the calf can't nurse. Okay. I went down. He said, she won't stand, and they had her fast to a post. I started to milk a cow, and I got maybe a couple quarts of milk. He said, let me milk. So he had a post there, and I took the cow's tail. I took the cow's tail, wrapped it around my hand, and hung on to keep her standing there. And she did her level best to get away. And I did my level best to hang on. And I did hang on until all at once I found myself flying backwards through the air and landed in a little pile of hay. And I rolled over, and I still had the cow's tail in my hand. The cow is gone.
John's older than I am, so he remembered better. I guess it was them. I bet there was several people chasing him.
Let Billy talk for a minute. Go ahead, Billy.
No, I said Alfred Holloway, but I just told Elton. I think maybe John, he remembers better than I do. He's older than I am, so he remembers better.
Mr. Brown, did you say before there was one? And I think out of our graduating class, I think there was 8 from here. And I would say maybe there was 4 that went to high school. And there's only 2 of us left that graduated from 8th grade here. The one boy died last year. He was a Kramer boy. He was down the bridge. And he died last year. And now there's only Elsie Loveland and I left from our 8th grade graduating class.
You willing to tell us what year that was?
Well, I graduated from high school. Graduated from high school in 40.
That's right. It was the orange grade.
I remember the school bus.
You didn't have any, you didn't blow any sneezing powder toward Earl, did you? So that was Uncle Clayton, I guess.
Sneezing powder? Tell about that. Did you play?
She wants to know about the sneezing powder.
Well, you want to know about the sneezing powder? Earl Champion was the driver of this orange crate. He's driving these big guys to vocational school. And they would blow this sneezing powder around Earl's neck, and he'd start to sneeze. Of course, Goody, he wouldn't do nothing like that.
Francis, because he taught over there, and he had the Model T. And you couldn't go down the Pitney Road then, you went around the other way. Well, we were riding along in this old Model T one day, one morning, going to school. And somebody said, there goes a wheel. Wheel had come right off the car, and that's why I brought that. I don't know what, I don't remember how he fixed it. But
There's stories to it, and the middle one used to have shows, and then the bottom one had dances, dinners.
There's a picture of an orchestra someplace that played in there.
Decoration Day, the women used to cook.
IOM, and the ladies till they met over there. I belong to both of them. And we met once a week. On Mondays, we met the IOM, and on Thursday was the Peerless of Day. And we used to have, our Sunday school class had a minstrel show there, and they liked it so well that we took it over to New Gretna. We did that to raise money for different things that we did for the church. And of course it burned down. But we had somebody come over from Lower Bank or Green Bank, I don't remember which it was, and they gave shows over here too. You remember that? We gave minstrel shows. I think you was the interlocutor, weren't you?
Where was this building located?
At the end of the cemetery, right up at the end of the cemetery.
Ready? I had a party there one night. We were young teenagers. We didn't have any money, so we wanted to get some gas to burn their car. So Altenbaum's car was sitting out in front of there, and we put a hose in his tank. Start siphoning it out. Had a 5-gallon can there, and about that time, Altenbaum's mouth and somebody else, and they stood there on the step talking. And we were out in the bushes, and we couldn't get back. And the gas was going all over, draining his car dry. So I shouldn't have told that again, but
Is that why they accused you of the Sneezes powder incident? The next topic we want to cover are, we're celebrating our 90th.
There wasn't very many cars in town at that time. In 1911, I was 6 years old. Daddy had a boat down the creek. He said, we'll get in the boat, we'll ride down the river, and we'll have an anchor out in the river and look at the dedication from the boat. So that's how we got down there. It was had a boat ride, dedication of the miner.
John, can you tell us about the dedication in 1911, Chestnut Neck Monument? Remember anything about that?
I was there.
Anything you remember?
I believe the lady's name was Sally Dowdy, and I saw her only rope, and I'll say cheating around the monument dropped away. I believe that would be about 6th of October, 1911. I'm not too sure on those dates, but I'm kind of close. Yes. Can I tell you this one thing? At one time, Port Republic sold thousands of tons of hay. It was gathered by hand, it was cut by hand, and put on barges or scows, and brought up the creek, and sold. George Holland and a man we called Bigfoot Charlie Wicks. He had a size 14 shoe on one foot and a size 7 on the other foot. And I remember him very well. And they had a place across on the south side of the creek where they stacked this hay, and the people from Pomona and up through Germania and Galloway came here and bought it. My dad was in that work too, and I remember a neighbor said, would you mind if I brought my cow up and let her pick out the sack of hay she wants? And when Dad came home, a man I won't name his name, but he came over and he said, that cow don't know which one she wants. You bring the one that you want to sell.
The picture over there on the table of the men that participated in it, Dad and Frank Wilson and Stanley Endicott, they, reenacted the battle.
Taylor Kramer. Or Taylor Kramer.
Yeah.
Yes, they came up the creek in their garbage with red coats or blue coats.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can remember because they had an ice cream stand there, the ladies did. And it was block ice cream. I remember we sold the block ice cream. I was pretty young.
Anybody else?
I remember my father telling about that day, him and the Herb Sanford.
There. And we thought we had everything all under control, but not him. He prayed for 35 minutes, non-stop. In that time, we sold 250 quarts of ice cream, and I forget how many gallons of clam chowder. In fact, I took my old Ford and went to Atlantic City and got another 100 quarts of ice cream, and we sold that in no time at all, but we had a perfect day, and boy, did we have a crowd.
Anybody else remember 1928?
Chestnut Neck, he came in from California, and of course his mother was across the street then, where the Mr. and Mrs. Dillon are now. And he was in California quite a while, but he decided that he'd come east. So he was home a while, and he went to work for Clark Adams. Clark was in the electrical appliance business. So Clark was in politics pretty good in Atlantic County. He was one of the freeholders from Pleasantville at that time. So Harold Hoffman was the motor vehicle commissioner in the state at that time. So the Republican Party got together and they decided that Harold was the candidate because he was a very, very good speaker. And he was a nice man. So anyhow, Ransford got on the campaign committee through Clark Adams, and of course Randy was a good speaker too. So they decided that they'd have Harold down here at the church. So Randy was feeling his way around about it, so they said, sure, have Harold down here. And I'll tell you, that day, that church was packed, and he was standing out along Main Street. And of course, Harold went on, he was elected governor. That's what I know about that.
All right, thanks, Russ. Claire?
All right, I would like to have anybody tell what...
I support played ball with them, but they said it was a only ball club. But they did Atlantic City and all over. Electric company, most fellows was an electric company. And they had a good ball club here.
Now, when was that, Brad?
Oh, sometime early 50s, late 40s.
Nels French used to pitch. Bud Lover played on it.
Sam used to catch.
Anybody else? Memories about baseball?
So I said Bud played on it.
I'm going to ask Russ. Russ, can you tell us about some of those players back in the 20s? Some of the people that pitched, like your brother, and some of the other players?
Well, the baseball team, I would try to name them off for you. Gus Hickman used to catch, and Ransford Abbott played first base, and Emery Wilson played the second base, and shortstop with him sometimes would be Cumley Wilson, his brother, and Charlie Loveland, he played third base. In the outfield, that was up for grabs a lot of times because sometimes they didn't have players enough. They'd have to link somebody out of the crowd.
Fred Huntley, my brother, though, he played on that team too.
Then they had Edgar Loveland, he played some, and Winfield Endicott, and Eugene Cavalier. So they would change off wherever they needed the players. The main pitchers were Eugene.
Yeah, we're going to make you famous, Bruce. Wait a minute. Here's the first.
what you need to carry your trailer.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have done that if we wasn't so late.
Good, everybody.
Is your mom and pop coming out?
Nah. Nah, they said they don't pay taxes here in Port Republic, I guess. I gotta get the councilwoman coming up the street.
And then he wouldn't take everybody in the car. Yeah, but we knew that already.
For little stuff, I'm sure that's
Rusty on the ground, I think the thing went like 10 or 12 feet up.
Well, you know what's really fun, you know, when it falls up there, you're up on the ladder.
The motor is down and the shaft is running up there. Is that the belt?
It's coming. Yeah.
That's right.
I tried the Hopkins and stuff.
No. I don't know. What am I doing? I'm looking through this little lens here.
I'm dumb, but you know, give me a little bit more credit than that. Oh, you know what? I've done that. I've done that already. I said I hope. After someone said that.
Oh, Johnny, I had to work
Here comes the trolley.
Yeah, I never knew it until I said it.
I know. Well, take him.
We were ready to come to films last night we were watching.
Let's hear it.
Oh, hey! There they are, yep. There's our team. The other end of the camera today. Oh, good. Got to get the leveling, Sarah.
Brigade. How you doing?
I'm getting you. Now I'm going away.
Well,
They claim this is the best kind of weather to take pictures in an overcast day because you don't get the shadows.
no, he's... Why?
Because you know, we're doing the pie eating contest.
Yeah.
We're doing a final those tables, and we're going to make a list. You get a couple of picnic tables from...
You gotta do a dance, what Kathy did.
Ah!
I'm here, and she wasn't here, and they asked me to accept it.
Baldwin and Mark Kirk and so many others that have helped out. I want to remind you that we have souvenir program books as well as refrigerator magnets available on the table over here. Please take one if you don't have one. Also, if you want to try a little venison stew, the Swan Bay Militia has a little sample for you over here at their encampment. I don't know if I have any others. The last thing I would ask your indulgence for just a second. Assemblyman Tom Foley introduced a resolution in the New Jersey General Assembly acknowledging Port Republic's 90th birthday. And here is a surrogate for Assemblyman Foley, who unfortunately is in South Carolina this weekend. We have the mayor of Buena Vista Township, Chuck Torello, who will be representing Tom Foley this afternoon. Chuck, thank you.
Thank you, Council President Schroeder and Mayor Giverson, for having me here this afternoon. Unfortunately, as they had stated, Assemblyman Foley is unable to be here this afternoon, but he does have, for the community of Port Republic, a very fine proclamation from the New Jersey General Assembly on behalf of the 90th birthday of Port Republic. I'd like to just take a moment to read it to you. This is a resolution in the General Assembly signed by Chuck Italian, Speaker of the General Assembly, and introduced by Assemblyman Foley. Whereas the year 1995 marks the 90th anniversary of the incorporation of the city of Port Republic in Atlantic County, and whereas the residents of Port Republic are celebrating their city's birthday with events to be held throughout 1995, and whereas the city of Port Republic has since its earliest days been recognized for its desirable location and for its reputation as an excellent community for family living, and whereas through 9 decades of its existence and through many seasons of change, the city of Port Republic has been effectively guided by civic-minded men and women who have inspired its dedicated citizens to participate in and to support their community. And whereas it is altogether proper and fitting for the members of this House to recognize and salute the leaders, residents, and friends of Port Republic as they gather to celebrate their city's 90th birthday, here now for it be resolved by the General Assembly of the State of New Jersey that this House hereby honors the city of Port Republic upon this auspicious occasion for its 90th anniversary of incorporation and extends its best wishes for continued success and prosperity in decades to come. I'd like to present this to Mayor Giverson and Council President Schroeder on behalf of Tom Foley. I also wanted to express Assemblyman Foley's thoughts today in regards to being the Memorial Day weekend and paying tribute to all our veterans. It's so very nice to see representation here from all wars, from the Revolution to the Civil War to our modern day veterans. And again, I thank you for allowing me to come before you this afternoon.
Thank you, Chuck. And we will put the resolution on display in City Hall. And again, thank you everybody for coming. And now we'll listen to some more music. Oh, the mayor wants to say something.
I just want you to put your hands together for Jim Schroeder, who really, really got this off the ground. A dedicated person in our local government law, and Jim really went after this in the right way, researching, and what you'll read in the program. Jim wrote this beautiful thing about our early beginnings,
And the city of Port Republic is indebted to Jim and the rest of the committee members for putting this event together. Thank you all for coming. And how about this break in the sky? You're all watching the weather station this morning. Praise God for great weather. Praise God and God bless America.